There is something about being outside at night that hits in a very specific way. The kind of feeling that makes you look over your shoulder for no reason. It is too quiet, too open. The air feels stretched thin, like the whole world is holding its breath and watching you move through it. That is the atmosphere of this first story. A normal sidewalk in a normal neighborhood. No forest, no abandoned building, no strange history. Just a street that should have been safe. But on one particular night, it absolutely was not. The guy who sent this in, Marcus, lived about 10 minutes from his friend's house. Because he did not drive, he was used to walking home after hanging out. It was part of his routine. He said most of these walks were boring in the best way. Crickets chirping, a couple of dogs barking in the distance, a single car passing every now and then. Just the usual background noise of a small, peaceful neighborhood at night. But one night, he stepped outside and instantly felt something was wrong. It was like the air had weight to it, heavy, thick. The street even looked darker, even though the lamps were definitely on. He later described it as that kind of dark where the edges of everything look like they're melting. A dark that makes you pay attention without knowing why. He pulled up his hood and started walking the same route he always took. At first, everything was normal. His footsteps, the soft hum of a nearby air conditioner, a cat running across a lawn. And then, halfway down the block, he heard something behind him. A soft scuff, like someone lightly dragging their shoe. Not loud, but sharp enough that his brain immediately went alert. He looked back. No one there. He kept walking, now a little faster, and after only a few steps, he heard it again. Another scuff, a tiny scraping sound, just behind him. Then silence. He turned around again. Empty street. Nothing moving. No sign of anyone. This is where it started to get strange for real. As he walked under the next street lamp, he saw his shadow stretch across the sidewalk in front of him. Nothing unusual. But for half a second, he saw another shadow right beside his, taller, narrower, slightly bent, like something standing at an angle. It disappeared the instant he blinked. He kept walking and tried to shrug it off as his imagination, but then it happened again and again, lamp after lamp. His shadow and something else next to it. Always taller, always distorted, always gone the moment he tried to focus on it. At this point, he was fully uneasy. He said he could feel something behind him, even though he could not see anything. That sensation where the back of your neck gets warm and your body goes into warning mode. He finally reached the last turn before his house, and this is when things escalated. The scuffs behind him turned into real footsteps, clear ones, heavy enough to echo on the pavement. They matched his pace too perfectly, slow when he slowed down, faster when he walked faster, and when he stopped completely, the footsteps stopped too. But the breathing did not. He said he heard it directly behind him, slow, unsteady, like someone standing very close, trying not to be heard. He stood frozen for a moment, listening. He expected to turn around and see someone standing right there. But when he finally looked, the street was totally empty. No car, no neighbor, not even a stray animal. Just stillness. The breathing faded out after a few seconds, almost like whatever it belonged to stepped back into the dark. That was all it took for panic to finally hit him in full. He took off running, sprinting the entire way home. He said he did not look behind him once because he was terrified that if he did, he would see something he could not explain. He reached his house, slammed the door, locked it, and stood there catching his breath. The house felt safer, but the fear did not disappear. He said the strangest part was that he did not hear anything chasing him while he was running. It was as if whatever followed him only moved when he walked, like it matched his pace only when he acted calm. The next day, he walked the same route in daylight just to see if maybe there had been a person hiding the night before, or maybe something he missed. But what he found made him feel worse, not better. On the concrete, in several spots along the sidewalk, were long, dark marks. Not footprints, not tire marks. They looked like something had dragged along the ground. Long, smooth, almost like something had been sliding right behind him. He checked with neighbors to see if anyone had seen anything unusual the previous night. Nobody had. No cameras caught anything. No dogs barked. The whole street seemed unaware that anything strange had happened at all. He took that as his sign. After that day, Marcus never walked home at night again. He refused to walk that route in the dark. Even years later, he said he could still remember that breathing right behind him, soft and close, like it was leaning in to listen. And whenever he thinks about the second shadow following him, lamp after lamp, he gets this tight feeling in his chest. The kind of feeling that tells you whatever he encountered that night was not a person, and whatever it was close enough to touch him.
Okay, this next one is a completely different flavor of creepy. It is the kind of story that gets under your skin because it takes something simple, something normal, something you would never think twice about, and twists it. The hook is straightforward. Imagine you're walking home at night. You pass a long wooden fence, and then something on the other side slowly starts keeping pace with you. No big sounds, no sudden jump, just steady movement in the dark, matching your steps like it has been waiting for you. The storyteller, a girl named Rhea, used to go on night walks to clear her mind. She said it helped to relax after hours of studying. Her routine was simple. A half-hour loop around her small town. Earbuds in, hoodie on, a steady pace, no risky shortcuts. She always kept to main paths, and the route she took ran alongside a long wooden fence that stretched behind a row of backyards. A normal fence, chest high, faded paint, nothing special. She had walked past that fence hundreds of times. Day, night, rain, summer. She never thought twice about it, not until one particular night when she heard a faint tapping coming from the other side. At first, she barely noticed it. She paused her music and listened. Tap, tap, tap. Soft, slow. Not rhythmic enough to sound like construction or anything mechanical. Just light knocks, almost like someone gently tapping the wooden boards with a fingertip or maybe a small stick. She shrugged and assumed it was an animal, a raccoon, a bird, something small moving around. She kept walking, and the tapping started again. This time it was aligned with her steps. Not louder, not faster, just there, following her pace, staying perfectly on the other side of the fence, as if something was pacing with her. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, close, too close. She still was not scared at this point. Confused, yes, but not scared. She even tried walking a little faster just to see what would happen. The tapping adjusted immediately. The sound matched her new speed so perfectly it made her stop in place. And the tapping stopped too. That was the moment she felt a quiet shift inside her. Not full fear yet, but the first spark of it. She crouched down and tried peeking between the wooden boards. There were always tiny gaps between the planks. You could usually see glimpses of grass or patio lights on the other side. Nobody ever covered them up. She lowered herself, leaned in, and looked, and her stomach dropped. Through the gap, only inches from her face, was an eye. Perfectly still, perfectly open, not darting around, not blinking, just staring back at her like it had been waiting the entire time for her to look. She said she jumped so hard she almost fell backward onto the sidewalk. She scrambled to her feet, heart pounding. The eye did not react. It did not widen. It did not look away. It simply held its position, steady and unbroken, until the gap in the boards finally moved out of her line of sight. That is when instinct took over. She ran, full sprint, no hesitation, no looking back, just pure fight or flight energy pushing her forward. As she ran, she heard the tapping again, not slow anymore, faster, matching her sprint. Tap, 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 like someone or something was moving right along the other side of the fence, keeping up effortlessly. She said she could not bring herself to look back because she had this overwhelming feeling that the moment she did, she would see something climbing over the fence, something that should not be there, something that had been waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. When she reached the end of the street, the tapping stopped instantly. Not gradually, not fading out, just silent, completely silent. The kind of silence that feels too heavy, too intentional. She stopped running only when she reached a street light near the end of the block. Hands shaking, she called her brother to pick her up. While she waited, she forced herself to look back toward the long fence. Nothing. No movement, no person, no animal, no sign that anyone had been there at all. The fence stood exactly as it always had. Still, plain, ordinary. The same boards, the same spacing, the same gaps she had looked through for years. She walked that same route in daylight the next afternoon just to reassure herself. She took her time examining the fence, looking through the boards, checking each yard for any sign of activity. Every backyard looked empty, quiet, normal. There was no area where someone could hide comfortably. No tools or objects leaning against the fence. No holes, no loose boards. Nothing. But she couldn't shake the image of that eye. Not wild, not frantic, just calmly staring back at her. Too still to feel normal, too patient to feel like a harmless person messing around. After that, she changed her walking route. She still liked her night walks, but she avoided that street completely. She said she doesn't even walk past that fence in daylight unless she absolutely has to. And if she ever walks near it, she keeps her head forward and her pace steady, refusing to look between the boards ever again. Honestly, same. If I saw an eye calmly watching me through a fence at night, I would change my entire schedule, my habits, maybe even my address. Some things you only have to experience once to know you never want to be near them again.
Into spider without the water sprouts. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun.
This last one is the kind of story that sticks to your brain long after you hear it. Not because it is loud or dramatic, but because it feels like something that could happen to literally anyone who decides to take a quiet shortcut at night. The kind of story that makes you think twice before stepping onto any path that looks a little too empty. The guy who sent this in, Tyler, lived near one of those old rail trails. You know the type. Long, straight walking paths built on top of where train tracks used to be. During the day, it's totally normal. Joggers everywhere, dog walkers, people taking cute sunset photos, the usual. But the moment the sun goes down, the whole trail transforms. The trees lean in, the air feels colder, and the whole path becomes this narrow hallway of darkness that goes on way longer than you want it to. One night, Tyler was coming home from a friend's place. Instead of taking the main road, he decided to use the trail. Even though it was almost midnight, he thought, it's fine, it's quicker. I've done this before. The classic last words of every person who ends up sending a story like this. He said the moment he stepped onto the gravel, something felt off. The temperature dropped. Not by a little, but enough that he actually rubbed his arms. It felt like the trees were holding their breath, waiting. The entire trail was so dark that even with his phone in his pocket, he didn't want to turn the light on. He just kept walking, head down, hands in his hoodie. About 5 minutes in, he heard footsteps behind him. Not heavy steps, not boots, just soft, steady taps on the gravel, like someone walking barefoot or wearing socks. Too light to be a dog, too human to be an animal. He figured someone else was out for a night walk, so he moved slightly to the side of the path so they could pass. Except they didn't pass. The footsteps slowed down exactly when he did, stayed the same distance behind him, matched him so perfectly it felt like he was listening to an echo that was half a second too real. He stopped walking. The footsteps stopped. That was when the first wave of uneasiness hit him. He turned his head slightly, trying to see shapes in the dark, but there was nothing. No silhouette, no glow from someone's phone, just pitch black. He pulled out his phone, flicked on the flashlight, and spun around. The beam hit the trees, the bushes, the gravel stretching back into darkness, but not a single person, not even a shadow moving. He turned the light off again, and the footsteps started up immediately. He said that moment felt like someone took the calm part of his brain and unplugged it. Every instinct he had went straight into panic mode. He tried to keep walking like nothing was happening, but his steps kept getting faster and faster. And each time he sped up, the footsteps behind him matched perfectly. He started jogging. Not full speed, but definitely faster than a comfortable walk. The footsteps behind him jogged too. Same pace, same rhythm. No heavy breathing, no stumbling, just those soft taps hitting the gravel in perfect sync with his own. That was the moment he realized this was not a person messing with him. He said it felt like something was right behind his shoulder, not touching him, but close enough that if he reached his hand back, his fingers would brush against it. He didn't want to confirm that. So he ran. He went from jogging to a full sprint, pumping his arms, heart beating so hard he could hear it in his ears. The footsteps exploded behind him, slamming into the gravel in a way that did not make sense. They were too fast, too smooth, too inhuman. They were gaining on him, closing the distance with every second.
but he refused to look back. He said his body simply would not let him. It felt like turning around would break some unspoken rule, like if he saw whatever was chasing him, it would change something he could never undo. The trail stretched on forever. He kept running, waiting for the end to appear, lungs burning. And then finally, the path opened up into the road. Streetlights, space, safety. At the exact moment he stepped off the trail and onto the pavement, the footsteps stopped. Instantly. Not slowing down, not fading, just gone like someone had muted the world. He stood there shaken, whipping his flashlight around, even though he already knew he wouldn't see anything. The beam reached back onto the trail. Nothing. No movement, no shape, no sign that anything had been following him. Just the empty gravel stretching into darkness. He said the creepy part wasn't even the footsteps. It was the feeling that whatever had been chasing him wasn't limited by the trail. It didn't stop because it hit some boundary or obstacle. It stopped because it chose to. Like it watched him get to safety and decided it didn't need to follow anymore. Tyler still lives near that path, still walks by it every day on his way to work, but he has not stepped onto that gravel at night since that experience. Even when walking past it, he said he always feels a subtle cold breeze drifting out of the trail, like the darkness is still breathing quietly, waiting for someone else to take the midnight short tack.